Thank you, Michelle, and thank you for reading that topic. I just popped up the flyer so I could remember what I sent in. I mean, I knew we were going to talk about the 11th step, but I have to tell you that senior moments come more and more frequently for me. My name's Jimmy Dean. I'm alcoholic. And I am from Dallas, Texas, and I'm honored and grateful to participate in the meeting. And Mary Beth, I just love Mary Beth. And if we got Mary Beth's story, she was probably Leanne at some point in her past. So we could just probably call her almost anything with any woman with two names fits Oklahoma. I can tell you that right now. Sue Ellen, all that kind of mess, right? And sobriety date August 25th, 1997. I can't remember if I gave it or not. I find it to be so apropos that the format of this meeting is to read spiritual experience at the opening, because that is such a substantive part of my experience along the lines of the step that and the quote from our book that I would like to bring as a, let's just say, as my experience and as a topic of discussion for this evening. As with so many things, my beginnings of a relationship with a power greater than myself were certainly seeded and formulated by somebody that I called a sponsor. I've been fortunate in the time I've been in AA. I've always had a home group because nobody ever told me not to have one, and I've always had a sponsor. So two thus far. Both of them are still living. My first one retired from AA when I had about 2.5 years, and spent 8 years going absolutely insane, but never taking a drink. And so now in my home group on Wednesday night, I have the opportunity to sit in that speaker meeting with both my first sponsor and my sponsor of the last 23 years, and that is. That's very comforting for a guy like me. I'm glad my sponsor did not have to experience the actual insanity of a drinking alcoholic before he found his way back into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. But it was suggested that I set up a pattern along the lines of the instructions that are in our book. Pages 84 through 88, 85, 86, 88, 10th step, 11th step, information that he wasn't trying to fast track me, but I can assure you that I was on step 1.5 when I received a gentle suggestion that in the morning, after I said that prayer very quickly, that didn't go any higher than the ceiling I thought at the time, that I should settle myself and try to center myself. And he asked me to take 5 minutes and not think about anything at all. That's it. Just 5 minutes. Don't think about anything at all. And I thought, I'm 32 years old. I'm a college graduate. I've been not thinking about anything for years before I came to AA. This will not be a problem. And so I got myself as centered as I could. I came in August. It was probably, I would think, early October. So, Dallas, Texas, it's still 75 degrees outside at 7 o'clock in the morning. And I was out on the patio and fired up a cigarette, fresh cup of coffee, and I'm ready to not think about anything at all. And it lasted about 17 seconds. And then I thought about that office. I'd been in that company for 13 years drinking alcoholically when I got to AA. And I thought about all of those soiled relationships. I thought about my grandmother, the only family that I had when it came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and how I wasn't welcome in her home when I got to it. I thought about all of those worldly clamors. I mean, the things that were just, part of the garbage that I drug with me when I was a new person, when I came in and just counting minutes of sobriety, my first few weeks at Alcoholics Anonymous, and if I had enjoyed any serenity the first 15 seconds, I certainly couldn't tell you. So my call in was daily, 7:30 in the morning. And I was hesitant about calling Greg because I felt like he would certainly be disappointed. I mean, he'd only asked me for 5 minutes. And so I called and I did what I think most alcoholics, certainly the guys that I sponsor that new or old will do, which is try to the best of my ability to control the topic. What do you have on your schedule for today? Will I see you at the meeting tonight? This, that, and the other. I would just say, banter, right? And he let that go for a couple of minutes. And have you noticed that people get a little bit of sobriety and they're a little bit impatient with what they perceive to be you trying to guide a conversation in a certain way? And I thought that was a well-honed skill. And he said, "Did you take your 5 minutes this morning?" And I paused for a second, and I'm going to tell you that I certainly debated on how I would answer. I mean, he wouldn't know. And I said, "I think I failed." And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "It only took about 15 seconds before all those things started coming up, the things that I don't know, when or if or ever will they ever be repaired." And almost immediately, and with a tone that was as gentle as any I ever heard before or since, he said, "Try again tomorrow." And I've been trying again tomorrow for the last 26 years. And I can tell you that it is a conflict for me that when my life is even getting close to being semi-smooth, I will abandon this practice that has served me so well for so long, which is to try to the best of my ability to continue to enhance my relationship with the power that certainly has grown in the time that I have been in Alcoholics Anonymous. And so, I don't know, when Alice and I talked about coming on and doing this, I would say that I had been on a long run of faithfully committing to the time at night, 11th step directions beginning in the evening, looking at my behavior for the period of the day and what I need to do, what actions I might need to take, who I might need to talk to about certain actions that perhaps I've taken. And then as importantly, in the morning, getting myself, let's say, centered and ready for the day ahead, trying to the best of my ability to ask God, as I understand God, for the opportunity to be of service and to be sensitive to areas where I can be of service. And I found that prayer always comes true. When I abandon this 11th step practice, and when I say abandon it, I don't mean entirely. I mean, when I shortchange myself by not giving it the attention and the priority that it deserves, what I have found is that more and more I would treat Alcoholics Anonymous and sometimes even members of Alcoholics Anonymous as somewhat of a crash cart, kind of like an emergency room at a hospital. I run to AA so AA can fix something. And I wasn't raised that way in AA. I was told in short order that they would give me the tools that were necessary for me to go from a taker to a giver, and they did. They fulfilled that commitment to me fairly speedily. The tools, obviously, embodied in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and in everything that they shared with me that they employed on a day-to-day basis, sometimes on a moment-by-moment basis, in order to affect, let's just say, a greater spiritual consciousness. Now, I was not struggling with atheism or agnosticism when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, but I was sorely disinterested. And frankly, I would tell you that I thought that this time that these AA guys were telling me that they devoted to the practice of the 11th step was time that could be much better utilized in other areas. In other words, basically, getting what you want or getting what you need, or telling somebody else that whatever you gave them was what they wanted all along when they didn't really. And so I had to learn a brand new pattern of behavior. And that brand new pattern of behavior was really built around the quote and the pages of the book that give us that shared experience of those 70 odd people that were really kind of just barely sober when they put all their experiences in written form for benefit of a guy like me. I sponsor, I don't know, 11 or 12 guys today. And I don't know, I guess I've had 3 or 4 of them weekly call-ins so far this week as we sit in this meeting on Tuesday night. And every single one of those guys is struggling with his conscious contact with the God of his understanding. When I was new in Alcoholics Anonymous, I would have said, what a coincidence that I would be on this meeting tonight to share hopefully something positive about what I've employed in order to live. And I've lived happy, joyous, and free in the time that I've been with you. I've had a lot of forks in my road, which have just been a natural condition of living on the planet with everybody else. And that those very simple tools have helped me to make sure that I bend to what I believe is God's will for my life at any particular point in time. When I do not bend, when I determine that I need to make sure that God's will is and my will reconcile, then I've gone back to old behavior. I've gone back to the way that I was. I'm just, I'm a non-drinking guy who's employing these character flaws that people are certainly sensitive to, in or out of AA. So I want to be the guy who can show up at 5:30 to make coffee and not be sitting on pins and needles until another alcoholic shows up so I can, share my version of sick with that guy. I want to be the guy who's going to be receptive to what the second AA member that comes in the room has to share with me. I want to listen to what's going on in his life and be absolutely absent of anything and everything that I feel like is not going as it should go in my own life. And the 11th step makes that so for me. It is the process by which I can really take selfless action. Of myself, I cannot do it. It's been proven time and time and time again. I am resentful when I don't feel like I receive what I'm due. And when I'm resentful, I don't get what I'm due because I would be punished for behaving in that fashion. I can tell you that the years of quote unquote continuous sobriety will peel away in the eyes of someone I'm having an exchange with if I've not prepared myself for that particular day. I've watched it happen. I had a secretary in my company who'd known me since I was 19 years old. I had a window of time at year 5 or year 6, which was kind of a flying blind period for me, maybe the first flying blind period for me. And I can tell you that I went for what I consider to be a significant amount of time, a run of weeks where I just gave just a very perfunctory glance at the 10th and 11th steps and my attitude, my outlook, my actions. They showed that to be true. And at 5 or 6 years of continuous sobriety, that secretary had known me all those years drinking, 5 years of sobriety. What she showed on her face when I spoke to her in the same way that I'd spoken to her before I got sober was, that's just Jimmy. That's just the way he is. And he's smoke and mirrored this AA deal for about 5 years. He's had a good long run, but that's not who's really inside. And I didn't want her to see that guy again. And in order for me to be able to do that and continue to do that with some degree of consistency, I need to make sure that to the best of my ability, I try to employ the tools that AA has shared and given to me. So as I was looking around to try to help one of the men that I sponsor through some of these circumstances of his own making, and also knowing that old Bill, he had an AA birthday yesterday, 89 years, if he was still on the planet of continuous sobriety. And I'm not much of a Bill quoter, And I know Bill was human like everybody else. Tell you what, get on the General Service Board and read some of the stuff. You realize that Bill was a seeker. And I'm so thankful that Bill was a seeker. And he had a lot of really interesting ideas about enhancing his spiritual consciousness. And the only reason that we don't print all that stuff is because a lot of it has nothing to do with the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. But it was part of Bill's journey. It was certainly part of Bill's journey. So I'm not going to presume to read much to you, but there's an article that was in the Grapevine magazine back in '58. Bill was getting ready to celebrate 24 years of sobriety. I just rolled 26 back in August. And I find this to be quite apropos that I would be in the meeting tonight and to try to bring you a little bit of a positive experience around my experience with the 11th step in Alcoholics Anonymous. Bill says 12-stepping, talking at meetings, recitals of drinking histories, confessions of our defects and what progress we have made with them. They no longer provide us with the release and the abundant life. Our lack of growth is often revealed by an unexpected calamity or a big emotional upset. Perhaps we hit the financial jackpot and are surprised that this solves almost nothing, that we are still bored and miserable notwithstanding. As we don't usually get drunk on these occasions, our bright-eyed friends tell us how well we're doing. But we inside, we know better. We know we aren't doing well enough. We still can't handle life as life is. There must be a serious flaw somewhere in our spiritual practice and development. What then is it? And he goes on for another couple of pages to describe what he felt like was his deficiency as it related to the practice of a step that certainly he helped to write. And I'm not in any way presuming to compare my life in Alcoholics Anonymous with the co-founder's life in Alcoholics Anonymous, but it is quite comforting to me that Bill continued to identify flaws, let's say, in his spiritual practice and knew that what he needed to do was, rather than find some material fix, which is what I always looked to before I came to AA, right? If you buy something bright and shiny, you feel better. If you find somebody bright and shiny, you feel better. If you go somewhere bright and shiny, you feel better. If you listen to somebody bright and shiny, you feel better. And that's not the deal at all. What they told me when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous is read these pages, follow these practices, enhance them with your own practices as you see fit. Be honest and open with another human being who understands the nature of your condition. In my experience, that has been a sponsor. Make sure that you utilize someone who can look at your experiences objectively outside of your frame of reference. And when I'm absent any one of those patterns of positive behavior, I'm in the same situation Bill's in. I don't need to be making any talks. I'll start believing them. I don't need to be going into rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and trying to suck the room dry. To the best of my ability, I need to recommit myself to a reconciliation that's just me and my Creator only, alone, and ask what strength and direction I would get from that relationship. That's 30 or 45 minutes on a normal day for me at night, and another hour in the morning. I was not a morning person when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. The pattern and practice of the 11th step for me has made me someone that actually cherishes that time. And there are very chances to actually have an open conversation with a power that I can't see or hear or feel. I have to make arrangements and make time and space and give that commitment energy and respect and be able to try to the best of my ability to learn and understand from the exchange, whatever the exchange happens to be. My sponsor, the last 23 years, gave me this phenomenal tool. My religion of origin that I don't regularly practice believes a lot in certain forms of meditation that would involve, at least several centuries ago, different forms of chanting and things of that nature. And really, it's a recording from my phone, and it's just a single tone. And the tone rings almost like a clock, but it helps me to center. So I start and end my practice with those tones. And I know that that's when I'm going to try once again to take that 5 minutes that sponsor asked me about all those years before. When I do not employ that practice on a regular basis, I am moving more and more back towards the taker rather than the giver. I'm the guy who wants Alcoholics Anonymous to feed me and external things outside of Alcoholics Anonymous to feed me. Things that, are panaceas, let's say, for my perceived ills. And then when something legitimate happens, when I'm presented with a circumstance that I can't postpone or evade, sometimes I don't remember what tools I used to employ. Sometimes I'm not sure I can find said tools. Sometimes I do need to get with somebody else or a group of people that can get me back on track. There's a guy in the big meeting named Howard P. A lot of you would have known Howard from Arizona, and Howard was a phenomenal communicator from behind an AA lectern. And I was at a men's conference in Oklahoma at Lake Murray 20 years ago, and Howard talked on Sunday morning, and he only talked about his practice for 55 minutes of engaging in the 11th step in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I've got that old cassette tape and still got some ancient equipment that will run it. And when I have been at, the lower depths, old Howard has talked to me and helped me become more right-sized. And how would that old guy have known all those years ago that he could carry that message to me? But I don't ever want to forget. I don't ever want to forget that I'm a guy who ran the show right into the ground. And that absent the spiritual part of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, which I believe is the only part, I have nothing to bring, nothing to give. And certainly I am less than willing to receive all the gifts that have been bestowed on me as a result of trying to the best of my ability, one day at a time, to give back what I've been given. I hope that I have stayed somewhere between the bumper lanes of the topic. And I am honored and grateful, and I really thank Alice, who's on the road, for giving me the opportunity to come into the meeting tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. That was terrific.